How's it going, everybody? Well, I don't think it's any secret that one of my favorite things about video games is getting to watch people talk about them on YouTube. And so I thought it would be fun to do something a little bit different today and make a top 10 old school gaming channel list. Now, when I say old school, I mean anything that got started up until about the early 2010s, mainly because that's about when I started watching gaming content on YouTube. Also, this list is in no particular order. I think everybody on here is about as good as each other in their own unique way. So, without further ado, number 10, Classic Game Room and CGR Undertow. Classic Game Room. Pretty fitting name for the oldest gaming review show that I know of. Originally begun as a show on USA Live in 1999 by Mark Bussler and David Croissant, it returned as a YouTube channel in 2008 as Classic Game Room HD, this time with only Mark. Classic Game Room was a fun and fairly simple review show. Not a lot of thrills, mostly just Mark talking about whatever game he had just played. The fun thing was his sense of humor. Either you like it or you don't. Mark has the sense of humor of a drunk 90s teenager. He's the kind of guy to say a video game would be better if it had Godzilla chugging a beer shooting cheerleaders from space who have nuclear rocket wings. He also loves talking about Truxton and El Caminos, and I mean a lot. The big pull for Classic Game Room is the variety of games he reviews. There's a system or game that you feel like people don't pay attention to, chances are he's reviewed it. Stuff like the Sega 32X, the Atari 5200, and the Vectrex, to name a few. Sometimes I just enjoy binging his Sega Saturn videos. Although it didn't start as a YouTube show, I'd still recommend the original season I mentioned at the start. Mark and David were a fun duo, and season 1 makes for a fun time capsule of the internet. It's kind of fascinating listening to two guys talk about the Sega Dreamcast as a brand new system and how good the new Soul Calibur graphics look. In addition to that, there was also something called Classic Game Room Undertow. Admittedly, I don't know too much about it. Originally, I thought CGR Undertow was a ripoff, but apparently it was a sideshow and officially part of the Classic Game Room channel. Back when it was all new, people seemed to only complain that Undertow wasn't Mark himself, but nowadays, a lot of people seem to say that Undertow was the superior show because of Derek Buck. I don't really have an opinion on that, but if you're looking for a straightforward show that isn't IGN or GameSpot, look no further than Classic Game Room. Number 9.
He's the angry Nintendo nerd.
Before he was the angry video game nerd, he was the angry Nintendo nerd. James Rolfe's original videos were all about unfair games on the Nintendo Entertainment System. His videos focused on cursing up a storm and toilet humor. It's actually shocking how well his videos hold up. I didn't watch him back in the day because, well, my parents absolutely would have considered his videos to be unacceptable first of all, but also that style of humor just wasn't my thing. Shock value in and of itself has never appealed to me, and so something being more vulgar than whatever else is out at the time doesn't really impress me. But having gone back, I've completely fallen in love with his old videos. For a lot of channels, vulgarity has been a crutch for the comedy, but somehow James makes it an integral part. Something truly would be missing if he didn't use it. He has a certain creativity with vulgarity that other channels don't. Instead of using it to make up for a lack of talent, he uses his talent to make the vulgarity funny and interesting. On top of that, he had to be the first gaming channel to have over-the-top fight scenes. He'd get into battles with characters like Bugs Bunny and even Freddy Krueger. For an internet show in the 2000s, that was a lot of effort to be putting out. But since he was a film student at the time, it makes sense. So if you feel like watching videos with obscene amounts of vulgarity in a time where no YouTuber is willing to even so much as say damn in their videos for fear of demonetization, give the angry video game nerd a look. Number 8, GameSack. Right now, GameSack is a channel run by this guy, but it used to be a channel run by these guys. If you're looking for a show that's not over the top but also has polish to it, GameSack's the one for you. Granted, the early days didn't have near as much polish as today, but you could see the foundation at play. The fun thing about GameSack is that they've always thought outside the box and had fun with editing. There seems to be a trend right now of people making super long videos based on subjects, like a video reviewing every Spyro game instead of just reviewing one. These guys were doing that way before anybody else. They also didn't just do reviews of single series. Like, check it out. Their first video ever was the SNES Super Scope versus the Sega Menacer. Their third video was about 8-bit 3D gaming, and their 11th video was about retro gaming on HD TVs. They seem to have a knack for making videos that hadn't already been done, at least not by any big YouTubers that I know of. Admittedly, their videos could sometimes have a slightly awkward, unscripted feel when it was the two of them talking to the camera, but if I'm being honest, that's part of the charm for me. More than anything though, I have to recommend their reviews of gaming consoles. They go into detail other big YouTubers just don't, and the presentation is always top notch. I mean, they really put a lot of effort into it. The little sequences where they show off internals or show games getting put into the console is just freaking awesome. Number 7.
Yeah, we don't talk about that one around here.
Alright, now look, I realize it's going to be controversial to have this on the list, but listen, what I'm talking about here is the entertainment value of these channels. I'm not talking about the people behind the channels. This is not a YouTube drama show. If that's what you're looking for, you can go elsewhere. Here, I'm just talking about how much I enjoy the videos when I watch the videos. That's it. Currently, The Completionist is, for the most part, a one-man show. But what I'm talking about is old school Completionist, starring Gerard Khalil and Greg Wilmot. The pull of the original is that Gerard is your straight talking man who 100% completes every game he reviews, no matter how difficult or long, and Greg is his comedic counterpart, frequently butting in to annoy him. Most episodes would begin with Gerard introducing the game in question and Greg screaming, "But Beardman!" and asking two semi-authentic questions and a third totally ridiculous question. There were already other channels featuring hardcore gamers, but a comedic personality-based review channel where the host always 100% completed the game was brand new at the time. And it was always cool to see him take on challenges like Super Meat Boy and Catherine. I feel that the skit comedy was a step above the majority of other review channels at the time, like with the Pokemon episode where Gerard, Greg, and a third guy all raised their own team between red, blue, and yellow version. I won't give away what happens, but the episode plays off the dynamic of the characters really well. And then there's what you might call the side episodes. Episodes where Greg reviewed the game were called The Mediocrist. There was also a series called Defend It, where Gerard and the internet cross-examined 3 witnesses over whether a traditionally hated game truly deserves to be so hated. It's an interesting concept and the funniest episodes in the whole series in my opinion. The only caveat here is that the original The Completionist show doesn't exist on YouTube anymore. If you want to watch it, you'll have to Google The Completionist archive and it should be the first thing that pops up. Number 6!
I never thought that peanut butter and jelly would go good on a video game, but this is pretty delicious.
Today, Peanut Butter Gamer has an upbeat, energetic, and slightly quirky tone to his videos. Back in the early 2010s, though, he focused a lot more on being awkward and telling self-deprecating jokes. And explosions. He really liked putting explosions in his videos. Definitely not the most polished channel you ever saw. Some of his early videos could admittedly be kinda lazy, like when he would upload videos of just random gameplay. But the actual reviews themselves were highly entertaining. He had the style of humor outcasts in junior high have, which, being one of those, I felt a connection to. He had his own running in jokes, like with Smiley Man, which will never grow old on me, and fun series like the G-Files, where he talks about strange things in video games. A clear play on the X-Files. He also had plenty of cameos on other channels that tended to be really funny, some of whom may or may not already be on this list. Well, I mean, I already put The Completionist on here. You already know that one, but I mean, also others who may or may not already be on here. Yeah. Number 5.
I don't see what's so professional about Jared, but okay.
Projared was a reviewer who was never over the top like PVG or Tron, but he also wasn't totally a straight shooter like The Completionist or Some Call Me Johnny, nor was he as dry as Classic Game Room. Whereas the other personality-based reviewers were focused more on platformers or whatever was popular, he gave more attention to stuff like action and turn-based RPGs, which outside of Zelda was sorely lacking in the normal boot sphere of things. He would start every episode by holding whatever controller was appropriate for the game he was playing and then say, "Oh, you caught me playing such and such game," and then he would dive right into the review. Just that little bit gave him his videos a certain flair right off the bat that other channels didn't have. Despite being on the more casual side, he wasn't afraid to give a well-constructed explanation for why he liked or disliked something. A good example of that is his Sonic Adventure 2 review. Do I agree with it? No. But do I feel he gave a really good explanation of why he thinks it sucks? Absolutely. When a man can bash a game you love in a way that still entertains you, you know you've got a channel worth subscribing to. Number 4. You think you're brutal? Come at me, brah! Come at me, brah! Brutal Moose is essentially a more dry, low-key, chill version of PBG. Ever so slightly emo without the emo getup. Much like Projared, Brutal Moose wasn't afraid to find his own niche of types of games to review even while still being personality-based. If you went to public elementary school in the early 2000s, chances are Brutal Moose reviewed one of the games you played during recreational time. Stuff like Pajama Sam, Oregon Trail, the Tycoon games like Zoo Tycoon and Mall Tycoon, Yobi's Basic Spelling Tricks, Zoombinis, and so on. He also didn't shy away from reviewing slightly more artistic and out there stuff like Bad Milk and Facade. If you're ever in the mood for a slightly less high-energy reviewer who isn't afraid to review some weird stuff, Brutal Moose is a good place to start. Number 3!
Some call me Johnny. That's not what I call him.
Some Call Me Johnny is a channel I binge every single year. For a long time his reviews have been called Johnny Versus, but his oldest videos were called SGB, or Super Gaming Bros reviews. I'm not entirely sure why that is. His brother would appear in some videos, but it's not like he was a part of every review. As often as not, it was just Johnny himself. Although from what I understand, he deleted a lot of older videos that I haven't even seen, so maybe his brother was more prominent in those. Either way, Some Call Me Johnny is the straightest shooter on this whole list. He tends to review games and marathon, so for example, if he just did a review on Kingdom Hearts, you best believe his next review is probably going to be Chain of Memories. Now, it's difficult for me to pin down why I like his videos so much. All he does is call it how he sees it. There's no skits, there's no jokes. It's just him holding a cup of coffee, looking into the camera, and talking about his experience and opinion. A lot of people do that on YouTube, but there's just something entertaining about Johnny doing it. Maybe it's the presentation. Him holding a cup of coffee in his living room or basement gives the video an inviting atmosphere. Feels like I'm about to have a casual conversation on a Sunday morning. Maybe that's it, the casual nature of the video. Johnny never blows up or goes over the top. He's not overly negative or overly positive. He's just talking in a casual and comfortable fashion, in a way that puts me at ease over hyping me up or fueling my rage. I'm still not totally sure, but either way, some call me Johnny is one of my favorite gaming YouTubers of all time. Number 2.
Why you so grumpy? I'll give you something to really cry about if you don't stop.
Here it is, literally the only Let's Play channel I watch. Well, except for Markiplier, but I didn't discover him in the old days, so we'll just call him an honorable mention. Game Grumps was one of the very first channels I ever got into. Before that, YouTube was pretty much whatever my autistic kid sister wanted to watch. Oh, the hours of hearing Teletubbies say, again, on repeat. I still have nightmares to this day. Modern Game Grumps is hosted by Aaron Hansen of the Ego Raptor channel and Danny Avedon of the Ninja Sex Party channel. It's a healthy mix of Aaron's over-the-top reactions and Dan's laid-back stoner vibes. Sometimes they talk about existential dread, and sometimes they talk about dicks and farts. Just look up Game Grumps Sonic Shits. It's a good time. But I'm not talking about modern Game Grumps. I'm talking about old school Game Grumps, hosted by Aaron and Jonathan Jafari of the Tron channel. They didn't start out with a whole lot of polish, but John and Aaron had an undeniable chemistry. Whereas Dan is very laid back and agreeable, John had high energy vibes and was highly opinionated. He was always prepared to defend his own position against Aaron, who was also highly opinionated, which resulted in several hilarious conversations that gave me headaches for days on end. Unlike most other Let's Play channels which focused on expertise in the game they were playing, Game Grumps focused solely on comedy and interesting conversation. In case of point, they weren't good at games. They were bad. They fucking sucked. But that's okay, because they were entertaining while they sucked. Not everybody is going to appreciate old school Grumps, but if you wanted to give them a shot, I would recommend giving the Sonic 06 playthrough a try. Episode 20 in particular. You'll notice that episode has a spike in viewers over the rest of the series, and there's a reason for that. If you know, you know. The one, the only Tron. This is it. The man, the myth, the legend. The one and only.
And his name is John C.
Nah, I'm kidding. It's Tron. I said this list was in no particular order, but this is the one exception. I mean, how could it not be? Tron ushered in a whole new generation of YouTube, a whole new way of reviewing games. AVGN may have kickstarted the original wave of negative, angry reviews, but Tron began the next generation of reviewers, a generation that demanded personality, unique from others. Frankly, a better period of YouTube. He changed the landscape of video game reviews as we know it. If I had to describe John's channel in one sentence, I'd say it's pure nonsense. And that's what I love about it. Sure, he reviews video games, but it's not really about the video games. It's about the laughs. You're not going to get a detailed, well thought out review from John on why a game is good or bad. You're going to get a ridiculous scenario involving a talking bird with a robot voice. More than anything though, what you're getting is quality. Tron is the epitome of quality over quantity. You might only get 2 episodes in a year, but you can bet those 2 episodes are going to be damn good. The man simply doesn't put out bad episodes. I'd say every other reviewer has their casual, not as high effort episodes that, while enjoyable, aren't necessarily a must-see on their channel. Tron's different. Every episode is a must-see episode. Every episode is a big event. Now that being said, John is so determined for his entire channel to be high quality that he's actually deleted quite a number of episodes from his channel that he doesn't feel live up to his modern standards. But don't worry, if you just look up Tron playlist, there's a couple of different ones that contain all the old episodes, including the ones that were deleted. Tron Lost Videos and Tron Archive are doing God's work by making sure this man's legacy doesn't end. Thank God.